Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast. I'm your host, Alex Harriman. This is my co-host, Jerrika and Alex. We are the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks for joining us today. Jerrika, how's it going?
Great. How have you been?
Yeah, good. Crazy summer so far. Time's flying by way too fast, and it seems like it always goes this way, but here we are, right?
Always does. Every year. I think I say the same line.
What's going on in your life lately?
I played my first baseball tournament,
Nice.
finally, and I was actually on your old stomping grounds in North Bay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that was a blast. They have some of my favorite fields, but it absolutely poured rain basically all day long.
Is it like rain or shine we're doing this thing?
Yeah, we play unless it's like not visible, thunder or lightning.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So we ended up calling it. We played right till the end, just before the finals, and then we could no longer. It was too dangerous.
The weather was just insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was warm rain, so it was honestly a blast. Like, we had fun. The guys called their tournament way before the ladies did. They're like, "We're out of here."
Really? Yeah.
But we toughed it out. It was fun. Yeah.
So is this just like up to your decision? You guys just get to decide if we
No,
keep
it's
playing or not?
typically the organizers call, but the players actually walked off the field of the men's tourney. They're like, "We're done."
Oh, wow.
But I can honestly say that I am so sore that I can't even really function properly. You think you work out and you think you're fit and you do all these like good rotation movements
Yeah.
and you're ready for sports, and then you play the sport and you're destroyed.
Yeah, every time I play in a volleyball tournament now, I'm just like crippled for a week
Oh, yeah.
afterward.
My obliques are just destroyed, but it's fun and it was great.
Awesome. Nice to be
Yeah.
back into some sports again this year for sure.
Yeah, it feels good.
What do you have for us for a topic tonight?
Okay, so today I want to talk about the other spectrum of what we usually talk about, which is what happens once we reach our fat loss goal.
Cool.
I think it's just a big misconception, and I know some of our clients have talked about this, just kind of like, oh, am I always going to be at these points, or we do points, but or calories? Am I always going to have this number to work with? And I feel like maybe I'm a little bit hungry, and I think people forget that there's the other end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people struggle with because, I mean, if you want to kind of break most people's fat loss journey into three parts, it would be like your fat loss, then a maintenance, and then kind of like a muscle gain phase for some people, which doesn't always happen that way, but a lot of people go through those different phases. And I think when you go from fat loss to no longer wanting to lose any more fat, that's a really hard transition for a lot of people.
Yep. And I think that's just because it's always been their mindset. And for a lot of people, they struggle with fat loss for many, many, many years, or a big part of their life. So when you reach that goal, it's like almost like a panic mode. It's hard to maybe eat a little bit more. It's hard to not do your routine of exercise. And I'm not saying stop. I'm just saying I think it's really important to find a new goal.
Yeah, for sure. And I think obviously I'm going to say this, but I think having a coach help get you through that phase is going to help too.
Absolutely.
A lot of people get in a really good routine, a really good habit with fat loss, and they think they've got it all figured out and things are going well. And then it's like, oh shit, now what? And without having somebody there in your corner to help kind of give you that clarity of what happens next, that can be hard for anybody to navigate.
And I think when I say you need a new goal, I don't want people to think you need a new, aesthetic goal. Like, right? You not just doesn't have to be I want to gain muscle, because some people are going to be very happy with where they are.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, when they've reached their fat loss goal. It could be any goal. Like, I want to tackle a Spartan race, which is something that we love to do, or now I want to, it could be anything, but just having a goal to work for, because it's something you've always been doing the last however long this journey went. So just something to focus your attention on, so that the now what doesn't stress you out too much.
So if we look at kind of the fat loss phase too, and we can kind of almost break that into two parts. There's like fat loss for somebody who's nowhere near their end goal, and then fat loss for somebody who is getting really close to their end goal. So, I mean, for somebody who's nowhere near their end goal, I think it's really important that you make this journey as sustainable as possible. So you need to constantly be asking, like, could I continue to do this? If not for life, for a very, very long time. If not, it's probably not sustainable what you're trying to do. And that's if you're nowhere near your end goal. You know, you've got a long way to go. You're going to be in this journey for a while. Like, buckle down, figure out how can you make this work for a long time. On the flip side, if you are somebody who's very close to your end goal, like we get a lot of people who are like, yeah, I want to lose like my last 5 pounds now. You will probably have to make some unsustainable approaches depending on what your goal is at this point. Like if you're just trying to get into like a healthy range, then no, you'll probably never have to do anything too drastic. But if your goal is to look leaner than the average person or the average healthy person, or to look like that magazine model, you're going to have to make some unsustainable approaches near the end. You're going to have to make some sacrifices that most people aren't willing to make in order to get to that point. So all of that is, I think, important to be aware of. And there's a great article called the cost of getting lean, I believe it's called, that kind of addresses some of this. But it's something that you really need to be aware of as you get into this journey. Like, how far do I want to take this thing? And it's okay if that goal changes along the way too. But
probably will.
Yeah, and it should for sure. But you need to be aware of, if I'm going to take this journey further than the average person, then perhaps I'm going to have to make some sacrifices that the average person isn't willing to make.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. Now, what if I was your client and I said, okay, now I'm happy with where I am, but now I want to start gaining more muscle. And for some people, for us, that might seem pretty obvious, but what would you be telling them?
Yeah. Okay. So I think an important part here is, how long have you been at this new weight for? So like if you lost weight really quickly, and then all of a sudden you're as lean as you want to get, and now you want to gain muscle, I would encourage you to maintain that weight for quite a while before we even.
Hoping you'd say that.
I'd encourage you to maintain that for quite a while before we even talk about gaining, because you need to wrap your head around what it's like to stay at that new low weight for a while. And that's part of the reason we do take things a little bit slower, and we really do believe in a sustainable approach, because for people in our program to get to that point, you're going to go through some plateaus, you're going to go through some maintenance phases, you're going to see your body's going to have time to get used to what this new normal is like. But if you did it really, really quick, then yeah, I wouldn't jump into a gaining phase right away, because I think it's going to be so easy for you to fall into your old habits again.
Yeah, because a gaining phase requires you to eat in a surplus of calories, typically in a little bit, so that you're able to gain that muscle, right? So then some people, you're right, they could get caught up in maybe that surplus, and so I think keeping it sustainable, maintenance for a bit would be my call as well.
I think a lot of people have heard of reverse dieting before, right? Where we go from, say, a deficit or a more strict diet, and we reversed diet our way back up to what would be considered normal, or even further than that, into what would be considered a gaining phase. Yeah, the maintenance phase is important regardless. Just try not to rush the process, especially if you don't have any intentions of competing in anything, and it's just more for general health and general aesthetic goals. Allow yourself a little bit longer at each phase. Allow your body time to adjust to that, what that new normal looks like, and take it slow, because it's a really, really hard concept to wrap your head around, the fact that your whole life or your past couple years you've been focusing on, how can I live in this deficit? How can I live in this deficit? And then it's like, oh, I've got all these extra calories. It's really easy just to use that in places that you probably shouldn't be using that.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. That's a really great topic.
I think that was the biggest take home too, is don't rush. And I think that's the biggest lesson here for everybody, is don't always have to rush into the next phase.
Now,
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, even like you talked about earlier, the people who are on these multiple year long fat loss phases, and you said they're in a deficit for so long, but even during those long fat loss phases, some people will be on a maintenance phase, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you're deficiting, you're eating less, and your body can become tired, exhausted. You might not, your energy levels will drop, and that's typically when we would give a maintenance phase to kind of give our body a break, eat a little bit more calories, and then go back into another deficit. So those maintenance phases also happen during our fat or a bigger fat loss picture, and we want to teach to be okay with not rushing the process.
Absolutely. And so for anybody listening that's trying to navigate this, if you have a long journey, if you know you're not going to get to your goal within the next, say, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, like you've got an extensive journey that you need to tackle, like I would really strongly encourage you building in these maintenance phases. But what you need to be aware of is most people will just build them in automatically. You'll get sick, or you'll go on vacation, or a life event will happen and you'll kind of take a week or two off. Like that's a maintenance phase. Navigating that without gaining a ton of weight is a maintenance phase. It's just a natural way of doing it. Now, if you're just super, super strict all year long and you don't allow yourself any time off, then you have to kind of build that in. And for some, depending on where people are at in their journey, I'll often do like a 2-week maintenance phase. And if people have gone a long time without any like sick breaks, vacation breaks, then sometimes I'll even do up to like a 5-week maintenance phase. And it's just it's a time for people to adjust to what their new body looks like, what their new calories feel like, have a little bit more calories, build up your energy levels, take a mental break from constantly dieting, and kind of get that self-confidence that's like, yeah, you know what, I can do this. I can live at this weight that is now 20 pounds lighter from where I started without too much effort. Because I think that's discouraging for people when they're like constantly deficit. They're not eating a lot of calories. They've always got that little bit of hunger, which is fine. It's okay to feel a little bit hungry. But then allowing yourself a maintenance phase where you can bring your calories up to a maintenance level, not even a surplus. It's like, oh, this isn't that bad. This is quite a few calories. If I budget it properly and I eat healthier choices, I could definitely live like this for the rest of my life.
Yep, absolutely. And even when it comes to, like, if I know that I have, 2 weeks of holidays coming up and I've got a bachelorette, this, that, I can now I know that's coming up, I can plan a maintenance phase. So at least I'm aware that I'm not going to be in a crazy surplus and come out of that with a gain, right? So
Totally.
you can kind of plan those things in advance.
Totally.
And we have many podcasts that we've talked about navigating ways through those, those crazy weekends. But being able to accept that and plan it and it not come out as a major surplus is a big win.
I think something that's important for the listeners is like, you need to plan a maintenance phase before a binge just happens because you were too restrictive. If you do this properly and you do it slow, it shouldn't really be a problem. And like those life events will be part of it. But if you're so restrictive that like Christmas rolls around or summer vacation rolls around, you just go off the rails for 2 weeks, you would have been way better off having a maintenance phase built in where you could, like we always say, minimize the damage through that phase rather than just go nuts. And that's part of the reason we always say slower, more sustainable. Don't live in that huge deficit because your cravings get so strong. And then as soon as you get a little bit of freedom, it's just too easy to just go completely crazy.
Exactly.
Cool. Great topic.
Cool.
I like it. I think we've covered most of what people will need to hear on this one, but I'd also like to hear from people on this. Like if you've struggled with this in the past, if you've struggled with, once you get to your goal, what do I do next? Reach out to us, because we could definitely dig into this a little bit deeper. And I'd love to have this conversation with people one-on-one if anybody is struggling with that concept of what to do next. For sure, reach out to myself or Jerrika on that topic. Do you have a kitchen tip for us tonight?
I do. I want to talk about my favorite thing in the world, which are Kodiak cakes, and I think you can agree with me. So they're a high protein pancake mix for those that have never heard of them. I buy mine at Costco. I think most people do. Costco carries just like the plain buttermilk flavor, but they come in a vast majority or variety of different
Flavors.
flavors. Yeah.
I find that honestly the other flavors aren't even as
I
good.
haven't even tried them.
I've ordered a couple off Amazon and they're way more expensive, and I don't think
Small
any of
boxes
yeah,
too.
small boxes, more price, not even as good as the original one at Costco.
Yeah, they have great macros. They're filling and they taste like an actual fluffy pancake. But I'm a huge on waffles, so I make them into waffles.
Yeah, I've been doing that too.
I've made them into bananas. I've made them into just about. Oh, I've made pizza dough, pie crust. I've used it for everything. So I highly suggest grabbing it. It's delicious.
I used it the other night for a fish crisp actually.
Oh
So you
yes,
you can actually go on Kodiak's website and search their recipes, and they've got
they have so
tons of
many.
different recipes. Really, really cool. I would highly recommend it to anybody listening. If you've played around with different protein pancake mixes, I would wager that Kodiak is the best one out there.
We are not sponsored by Kodiak Cakes.
Yeah, but we should be. So if you guys are listening, give us some money. Cool. Thanks for listening, guys. Make sure you rate this episode on whatever platform you're listening to it. 5 stars, preferably. That would be great. And if you have any friends that could benefit from hearing this, share it with them. Take a screenshot, share it to your Instagram story. Get the word out there if you love listening to this podcast. And as always, let us know what topics you want to hear in the future. Thanks again.